Sorry about it. Hey, Greg.
Yeah, Antonio.
Hey, sorry, I'm at a public incubator here, so they're making people wear the masks in the lobby. So I apologize. I know.
Last night I was sailing, as you know, and
Yes. Yes.
there was a
Congratulations.
lady, and it comes down to like where you come from and what you think about all this stuff, and everyone's getting their news from different sources. If you listen to Fox, you listen to any of the bigger organizations, you're hearing this is what it is, this is the numbers, this is the odds you're getting really sick, and that's dropping, right?
Right.
So then you listen to CNN, and the sky's falling, and everyone's going to die, and it's going to be a barren planet in 3 years. So it all depends on who you're listening to, and it's driving me fucking crazy. So last night there was this lady on the boat, and she's like, I don't know, 65 maybe, and she's on the boat, and everybody else is like, I want to take the mask off and just sail. And she's like, masks? We need the masks.
Oh man.
What do you think is gonna happen?
There's always
I don't
one.
know, but I'm scared. I'm like,
yeah.
Please.
You know what I mean? It's
so the stuff on my responsibility is to pull the halyards up and bring the sails up. It's really hard work. So it's like a minute of going like this, right? So I get done and I'm like, I got the mask on. I'm going, I can't breathe.
Oh my God.
So I go like this. I go like that, and she goes, mask.
Oh my God. Right. You have the hand sanitizer for after you pull the mask down? No hand sanitizer on the boat?
It's unbelievable. I'm like, give me a break. And we're out in the great outdoors. That's what kills the virus. That's even funnier.
Right. Can you hear me okay at least?
Yeah, I can hear fine.
You can, great. So the governor here in Rhode Island is pretty progressive on this stuff, and it's driving other folks crazy. But she's been very aggressive around this. So her and Cuomo have been kind of in lockstep.
Cuomo's such an asshole; it's unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. So she's been methodical. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So I give her credit for consistency, even though it's crazy. But she's being consistent.
You got to say they're. You can make a case for them being hyper cautious. It's okay.
Right. Yep. So I apologize. I may go in and out of this, so I apologize up front. Hey, John.
I can hear you fine. Don't worry about it.
Thank you,
John. We cannot hear you.
Thanks for the email. Appreciate that. I got your email.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that was.
Man.
I think it covers it pretty much. And
yeah, I'll look at it.
So yeah, I try to cover the responsibilities as broadly as I could, because you got a lot of stuff going on, and you have a lot of potential responsibility.
There he is. Hey, John. How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
So
Greg, it's really weird. I saw the invite for this meeting pop up on my calendar. I use an iPhone, but I don't have the email.
Really?
Yeah, and obviously the calendar on iPhone sees the email to put it in my calendar.
Right. Wow.
But I can't see the email. Weird.
See that? Apple put it in your calendar, and then Apple took the liberty of deleting it from your email.
Yeah.
You don't need that. We know you don't need that.
I could see if I accepted it that it would work that way, right? But
right, that's how it works with the other things too. That's so weird.
I mean, when I used to use Outlook in a corporate environment, I used to not let it automatically delete the invites after you accept it, because a lot of times people write shit in it, and I'd rather have it as an email than have to go to the calendar and look at what's in the calendar event. So I always change that default in Outlook. So I'm kind of glad Apple doesn't take that liberty right now.
Yep. I used to spend a lot of time to my Outlook invites, and no one would ever look at them, but they would look at the attachment in the email. So I hear you.
Yeah, that's strange.
So who's joining us for this call?
The last person I was expecting is Bill. And
but is there? Are we talking to a vendor?
Hold on.
I don't
Is
think
that
so.
the intention?
I don't think so.
Okay. Maybe not. I just wasn't
No,
sure. I thought
it's no vendor. We were actually talking to a vendor. And I talked to Google yesterday, and you and I have to schedule something for next week. I think just anytime we want. But they're gonna send me a lot of documents they haven't yet. They said like 30 documents, but they're saying that they are laying down a lot of fiber to make themselves faster. And I went back and listened to that thing we did with Andrew, and he was saying the same thing, that Google's increasing their speed. My feeling, I'm wondering why Microsoft wouldn't have a really fast system, since they're the guys who run the Xbox. And on the other hand, okay, Bill just said he's about to come on in a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at companies that are that large, like Microsoft, their Xbox platform is probably totally distinct from like a lot of their cloud infrastructure that they sell. So you know what I mean? So it's probably totally different. Like you might have super high bandwidth and speed and performance on the gaming platform, but you might not have the same thing on the commercial platforms unless you're paying for it.
Yeah, that's why I'm still leaning toward Google on that. But a lot of people are saying that AWS is number one, expensive, and number two, not keeping up with the Joneses. But I don't know. I thought I'd leave that to smarter minds than mine. But again, the reason why I like Google is that it has all the other stuff around having a site and apps, and with the ads and the DFP and everything else that they do, and then the analytics and the translate and all the other. I mean, they keep on buying other companies, so they have a whole.
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, you can use Google Analytics and AdWords and all that kind of retargeting stuff. You can use that regardless of whether you're using their cloud or not.
Sure.
Sometimes there are some inherent simplicities, because when you go to set your analytics up, it can turn things on in other Google Cloud systems to enable that and things like that. But I don't think necessarily that your decision should be driven by that. And I also don't think we should really put a super high priority on the performance and bandwidth that you're going to get. Like you say, okay, Google's not as fast as Microsoft, or Amazon is slower than Google Cloud, etc., because those platforms are all going to catch up to each other over time. And I'm going to mute myself. A train's coming through, so stand by. But anyway, I don't think we should worry about minute differences in performance to make a decision on what cloud provider you're going to get. I think we need to look at the whole package. And as long as their performance isn't significantly different than the others, I think that's relevant. It should be something to consider, but not a priority.
Okay, so another thing that.
Morning, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Morning, guys. How's it going?
Excellent.
Good. I heard so yesterday I was talking to these guys over at Google and the Google Cloud, and I had an engineer on there, and he was saying some good things about Google, of course. But he also said that the programming platform that they're really hyped up right now on is Kubernetes. And so Kubernetes, Kubernetes. And he said
that's like a deployment package.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he was stoked on that. I read some other things over the past couple of days that ASP.NET is 5 minutes ago and doesn't have as strong a development network these days. And I don't know. I have to defer to guys who are like in the know. What are you hearing, John?
I mean, as far as .NET, it's a pretty robust platform.
Right.
And if you were to choose, Microsoft's cloud, Azure and stuff like that as your platform, then it really meshes well with the .NET stuff. .NET has the capabilities to be run in any cloud platform and can integrate with all of those too, whether you use Kubernetes and Docker, and you can throw out all of these different technologies, but they all kind of run the same way. So I don't think .NET is passe or behind, so 5 years ago or 2 years ago or whatever. Microsoft might be slower in implementing some newer technologies and sometimes gets caught up in emphasizing their own tools as opposed to third-party tools.
Mm-hmm.
However, that has changed over the last 10, 15 years. Microsoft has become more open. They actually participate in the open source community and have offered up code and have improved some of the top open source platforms. So, as a .NET guy, I tend to lean that way, and I haven't seen anything that says .NET is not a top-notch player and doesn't deserve your thought process. The other thing is that the .NET platform is so robust and so well-founded. I mean, it's been around since 2004 now.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So it's not going away.
Right.
There's a major corporate investment in it. It doesn't go away. Microsoft just can't turn a switch off. But it does embed you into the Microsoft stack. And I don't see a problem with, I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. So those are my thoughts. As far as a development platform, I mean, there's not much that really stands up to what you do with .NET. And I think most of your major technologies have really thin clients, all based in some kind of JavaScript library, whether it's jQuery or React or Angular. These are all JavaScript frameworks that allow a front end to do stuff. And you use this whether it's a website or a mobile app or anything of that nature. And if you're building your front end to be thin using HTML and JavaScript frameworks, your back end can be .NET, PHP, whatever you really want it to be, Java. There's other technologies too. PHP, you have to kind of remember, is an open source platform. So if there's something that's not being addressed by the open source community,
it's going to be.
Well, it depends. I mean, somebody has to be willing to jump on it. So if nobody really views it as a major thing, then you're kind of stuck. .NET has, Microsoft behind it. If there's a problem that's relatively burdensome on their clients, they fix it. I specifically experienced that kind of thing where I would find a bug somewhere in Microsoft's platform, and if you can reproduce it and get them to eyeball it, they'll fix it.
Cool.
Will they fix it or upgrade it? Because a lot of times they upgrade this stuff and they don't fix what the problem is. They just take it around.
I've received patches from Microsoft to address a bug in our environment that they have not put through, their general QA and have not released yet to the public. So they will fix things if you're a big enough customer, or if there's enough customers that are having that problem.
Right. Okay.
That's cool.
Interesting.
The .NET tools. Another thing too is on how you use and the Microsoft tools. So if you're developing in .NET, the tools are kind of all the same. Everybody's using the tools, whether they're on a Mac or a PC or whatever. When you go with things like Java or PHP, and you even look at the client side, the mobile apps and things like that, you can have multiple different development tools.
Right.
So if you go with one vendor, they might use a tool to build your mobile app, your iPhone app, and your Android app. And then if you ever switch to another vendor, they may use different tools, but your code base is geared around whatever tool that first developer used, not necessarily the second. Whereas with .NET, it doesn't matter what developer you go to. Everything is the .NET tools. Now, there's some third-party add-ons and plugins and things that you add to .NET that you could have multiple vendors or solutions for. But that's another advantage to the Microsoft platform. So I don't know that we've really given a whole lot of thought, Greg, to any other platform than .NET.
No, we haven't.
Over the last several months. Now, whether that means you should stick and really give some consideration to the Microsoft platform, I don't know that that's necessary.
John, I have a question. How does the Microsoft platform work with the Apple platform? Or the other working like that? Because a lot of people around the world have Apple iPhones and all that. And be using our system on it.
It works just fine. It actually, yeah. I forget. There's a module that you use with your .NET development tools with Visual Studio that allows you to do mobile development, and it has emulators for iPhones and everything else. So it does work well with that, and it's based on, and I can't think of the name of the software right now, but there's some software package that's common across mobile development, and Microsoft has integrated that. So it functions the same as if you have like a native Mac-based iOS development tool. Visual Studio with what's called .NET Core, which is kind of a newer version. It's a few years old, maybe 5-6 years old now. It's a newer version of the .NET code that's cross-platform compatible. So you can now have a Mac computer and do .NET Microsoft development. You used to not be able to do that. You had to be on a Windows platform, or you had to have a Mac that did Windows emulation and then run it under that emulator. You don't need that. There's now a native version of Visual Studio for the Mac platform. So if you have people using .NET to modify some of the front end, like they could do it with Visual Studio if they wanted to.
Good.
So, Greg, I forwarded you a quick proposal on not only UX UI, but a small team, full stack guys that I wanted you to run by John to see his thoughts on it. They work primarily, they're obviously .NET guys too, but there's, and John, you may know more about this than I do. Ever heard of React.js? So they're proficient in React.js, and didn't know if that was something that you had flipped to John at all, Greg, or have you got a chance to absorb that yet?
I haven't been even, I saw it, I looked at it, and I meant to pass it on to John, and I don't think I did yet. Did I, John?
Yeah, no.
No, not specifically, but to kind of shed some light on that, you know, JavaScript is the language that actually the protocol is called ECMA script.
Yep.
And JavaScript is your most common implementation of that.
Yep.
And JavaScript is what makes websites and mobile apps run. That's the logic, as opposed to the HTML, which does images and text and how you lay it out, that kind of stuff. React and Angular and jQuery are all what you would call frameworks. So there's code that is relatively common that you would write in JavaScript. Like, how do you send a request to a database server or something like that?
Right.
And to write that in JavaScript takes, you know, 100 lines of code or something like that. React has one line of code that does it, because it has its own framework behind it that has all that code written.
Right.
So React, Angular, jQuery, they're all JavaScript frameworks that allow you to code things faster, you know, and build up common functions, things of that nature. There's no difference really between React, Angular, jQuery. React, I believe, is a Facebook developed library. Angular is, I believe, Google. So each of these frameworks has like some major company, like it was their own proprietary thing. They then open sourced it. So typically when you would look for a vendor to do development, a vendor who can provide you and has the skills to do React or Angular or jQuery is obviously more ideal than one who specializes just in React.
Yep.
So we would be able to kind of pick and choose, and we'd have more control over the technologies that we're implementing.
Yep.
If you pick a vendor who has skills in React and that's what they really use on their front end stuff, that's fine. But now we're embedded to React because of that vendor selection.
Gotcha.
Right? So you know, when you hear terms like React, jQuery, Angular, those are frameworks and those are specific coding technologies. I could be a very proficient React programmer and have no idea how to come in and help you fix your Angular site.
Yep. So yeah, so you definitely, Greg, if you get a chance to flip that over to John, because I know they were probably positioning React, but they're agile, they're Angular, they're Node, they're full stack guys. They have a bunch of different platforms they work off of. I think they maybe just for this particular project, they handle most of my conversions on web projects.
Yeah, I just sent it to them.
Oh, awesome. So, and again, they know more about the stuff in their sleep than I do when I'm conscious. But if something in there resonates, John and Greg, if you guys want to, I'd love for you guys to at least have a convo, because they're a small, hungry group, and I would bet price-wise be pretty aggressive versus anything from India. So I didn't know it's attractive pricing on that, but it may be just more to keep things domestic while still being price aggressive. Just maybe worth looking at. That's all. At least talking to. I'd love for you guys to at least talk to these guys.
I think, Greg, that begs the question, you know, are we in a position now to still choose the actual development team that we're going to engage?
Sure.
Or have you know, because if we
there's
go through,
there's nothing holding us. There's no handcuffs to Anshul and Myzeal. So we can go and put any place we want.
because if we want to do that and we want to talk to them and get a proposal, we're going to have to go through that same, you know, kind of process with them, which would take at least a couple days for us to get through those meetings.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I like John Phillips, he has that team ready to go. But also they gave us a great, I think that timeline of 90 to 100 days is a very good timeline for us. If we can get it shorter, that's great. But I would be surprised if anyone can go shorter than 3 months.
Well, I also think, and we've discussed this before, Greg, but I also think that in order to hit that 90 days, we are going to have to, you know, significantly limit what functionality is available in that release.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure we're aware. So if we come back and we say, okay, this is what can be achieved in the 90 days, and it's not even 30% of what you think is necessary for the trainers or whoever, you know, so we have to be cautious about that time frame. I think the vendor, Myzeal and the others, I think some of them were still a little in the dark as to what was going to be needed to go through this conversion within 3 months. That's the primary thing.
Also flexibility, right? You need something to be able to expand to increase what we need to do. Right. This is a 90. The 90 days is for right now to get us going. Correct. Yes. And then we want to kick it in and add more to it. But at least if it's expandable, it's worthwhile to keep them.
Well, that's what's I think good about Anshul is that they do have 200 some odd programmers, and they are also working on that 12-hour delay where we get done. If we're working on specs between 9 and 5, we get done. We sent that to India. That's there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they'll start at 8. So they'll have whatever we have decided to tweak, hopefully done by that night, which is our morning. So we're getting a real 24-hour spin, and it should cut our development time in not, if not half, by at least 30 or 40%.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, you'll be running like 1 week sprints.
Yeah.
Where you'll have like a set of objects. You're never going to give them something, expect turnover the next day on something. I mean, you get so much administrative overhead.
Yeah.
Like that's just unrealistic.
Just the way it is.
But you could do like 1 week sprints where you basically have some objectives for that week. Those are delivered at the end of the week. And then at that point, they'll address feedback from what they just completed, as well as anything new that we came up over the last week. And we would all kind of jointly agree and come to consensus. This is in the next week's sprint.
Right.
What gets included.
Yeah, we had to batch everything. So to John's point, we very rarely did, hey, here's a change. We want that reflected Tuesday and submitted on Monday. It was batched everything, every minor changes for that week, and then you would see it all reflected, hopefully all reflected in the following week. So yeah, to his point.
The only thing that would become like really high priority is, let's say they do their weekly sprint, it's approved for release, and as you release it, you find that there's some functionality that's preventing others on the team from being able to continue their development work, then that bubbles up as a high priority, because you can't have that be like a roadblock for others to keep progressing.
John, are you thinking the way I'm thinking, that we're going to let them do this first really big batch of development, and then develop a team in-house to take care of stuff on a day-to-day basis?
I think it depends on the timing, and I think certainly, there's the financial aspect of it and being able to support that. So, but I'll set that aside, because that's on your plate. But I think after we do this initial 90-day release, I think there's still going to be significant amount of work that we want that original developer in there, to continue to do work. I imagine that we will be engaged with them for close to, if not a little bit more than a year, at least. Okay.
That's great. Now, that keeps our burn low on this side.
Maybe 6 to 9 months down the road, depending on the progress of what we've been able to release at that point, we may want to start to bring in some in-house people to start getting exposure and experience. As the stuff is released, you're going to find, oh, here's a bug. Oh, here's something that just the experience isn't right. We need to shift it around somehow. So if that happens, those kind of things could potentially be done by some in-house people, as opposed to sending that back to the development agency. You leave them do the big changes, the next releases. So we could build a team that way slowly. And then over the long term, when you finally want to cut the cord with that development agency, you'll have enough people in-house, whether it's 2, 5, I don't know how many, but you'll have a handful who already have experience with the code base, and they can kind of grow into your senior role as you bring on additional people.
Right. That's my feeling too. I think if we do that intelligently on that end, it'll work very well in our favor.
Now, I got a question to make sure I'm on the same page in that. Once we start moving along, we start putting developers to increase what we're doing, especially videos and how they relate to each other, and getting up and down, uploading and downloading, everything else there. As we change it, we're gonna have like a test site for it, right? Like a special computer or separately from a whole business, right? So make sure it all works, get the bugs out, and then we can launch it.
We're gonna put all the changes right on the live server, and if it breaks shit, we'll know right away. just kidding. There will.
We crash, the whole system goes down. We do that in Greece.
I mean, at a minimum, we will probably have 3 distinct environments. We'll have a server for development, a server that we'll call staging, and then the live or production server.
Okay.
So the staging site would really be similar configuration, everything just like the live server, just a different URL.
Right.
And that would be where you do final kind of testing.
Right.
So when there's a new release, anybody involved in testing, maybe it's just us, maybe there's other people, maybe there's some clients or trainers that you have on a field test team who are real users and members that are willing to provide you feedback. So the staging environment, no changes would ever be made there. You would simply deploy the next version for approval to release to production. The development environment is where developers can place new versions of code to test things. If they break it, no big deal. If they break it while you're testing stuff, because you're testing on staging, something I break in development doesn't affect the ability to test the plan changes as it is. We will have those three environments. The vendor that's doing the application builds are going to have their own development environments. So they may not even use our development. They may just deploy right to stage and say our next release is up there. You know, that kind of thing. Sometimes there's a fourth environment, which is like a QA. In a formal development shop, you'd have a team who's focused only on QA, finding bugs for a new release. For the time being, the vendor that we engage with will have a QA team that will manage that process, and they should be able to fix and find most of those bugs. So anything that we find should be relatively minor. You know, there should be no major bugs. Oh, well, I click this button and nothing happens. You know, you're not going to find those kind of things. You're,
We hope not to.
Yeah, so that, you know, I'll have code and I'll have my own development environment on my computer, so I can make changes and make sure it works before I even put it to the development environment. But so we'll have at least three. The process of who has access to what the life cycle is, what's the process for deploying and promoting it from one environment to the next, ultimately promoting it to production to be live.
Well, that's good, because we had a developer and we are Greece, and they set us all up, all computers, the guys are out there, they built the whole system where they like to develop it nicely. Oh, it works great. We never looked at it ourselves. They skipped the testing stages, we became the testers. Luckily, we're offline for the all media, so we didn't lose everything, but we lost everything we had in our room. Our whole building went down. Wow. Because we were in there, all of a sudden we hit buttons and everything went crashing because they didn't try to test it the way we tested it. We need to use it a certain way and push it a certain way. And they didn't push it and work with it. So what they ended up doing, they fixed it back to where it was prior, where it worked okay, and they brought somebody over with us. That guy loved the fact, and we loved the fact that he was there with us as our support, watching what we're doing, so as we're testing his system, he can upgrade and change things and make it better and tell them what to do. Hopefully the companies we get can do the same thing with us. That way we can keep the progress going real well.
Yeah, nothing should ever get put into the production environment until whoever the stakeholders are, you know, there'll be probably a handful of people on our side that all have to say, yep, approved. I think everything's working fine.
Right.
You know, if that's us four, if there's other people, maybe it's just one person. Maybe it just has to make Greg happy. You know, and you know, that kind of thing. So there's gonna be a certain number of stakeholders that when there's a new release put on staging that's being recommended as a production deployment, there's a procedural process that has to take over. Right. Now you can use technology and different software tools to say, okay, it's your turn to review it and approve it. you know, and it might all be done electronically as opposed to us sending emails saying, oh, this looks good. This, you know, so there's different ways to do it, but it is procedural in nature. It's a process that everybody buys into, or perhaps has mandated to them that this is the way the deployments run. These are the people that have to provide approvals, and nothing goes into production. So there are times when, for whatever reason, you can't always replicate a production environment. There may be a piece of hardware that costs a couple $100,000. Okay, like if you're thinking like a video production studio, for example, there might be some equipment that's over $100,000. You're not necessarily going to go buy another piece of equipment to have in your testing environment, right, because it's so expensive. So right, you will find ways to simulate that, so it seems like it would work. So there are things that, for whatever reason, cost, etc., you may not be able to test, and you can run into a deployment to production and find out something's not working. But any deployment plan should always have the ability to roll back, right, so that you can then address it. You know?
That's what I was really getting at too, because that's exactly what they did. We rolled it back and it worked okay for the previous one, and it worked fine. Then in the original one, that makes sense.
You know, one of two things happen. Either the test plan was not thorough enough to test a specific thing, or there's something about it where you can't replicate that thing in your test environment. So, you know, in one case, it's human failure to define what your test plan is. Right. In the other case, there are business constraints that prevent you from being able to test something.
Well, I think with the crew we have here, this team right here, I think we're in good shape. And I have a lot of the videotaping background and different types of aspects I use for editing and producing and writing and putting it together. And so is Tony up there, and I know both you guys, Greg and you, John, both have a lot of experience in not only in editing and IT especially too. So it's I think we have a lot of the angles covered for any potential problem like that going on forward, which is great. I like that. That's just us for now. We get more as we go along to be stronger.
Hey, yeah, Bill, what's your file sharing platform? Sorry, John, I just wanted to ask a quick question around that. What's your preferred method? Is it Wistia? What do you like?
I'm not too sure, to tell you the truth, which one I like best.
Okay.
We bounce around a lot, so I don't know which one's the best. We use our Avid system in After Effects a lot. So when we do our product, the final product has to get kicked over to there. A lot of times we're not exporting as much. We tend to use Microsoft a lot. So I don't know what we're using on that, but if we export, most of the time we're sending it in-house. We're sending it to in London or California, but it's through our own fibers to going to where they got to go. Yeah. So it's going through AAF format a lot to keep it all everything similar, but they all talk to each other that way. So I don't know what platform that is, though.
So it's some more collaboration, some more people are feeding, but versus just file sharing, it's more collaborative tool.
Correct. Yes. That's just
gotcha. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Just wanted to.
You know, keep in mind that, like, my focus is really reined in on, you know, allowing members and users of the site to view video.
Correct.
Like there's nothing in the site that's related to video production or video editing.
Yep.
So, you know, we're really, you know, the biggest technology hurdle that I'm really going to be focused on is how to take these video files, provided that they're all in the right formats to support whatever devices we support.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big question.
You know,
well, we get a transcoding program that makes that not that big a question. They do exist.
Well,
not really.
Yeah, but you know, the thing is, it depends on exactly what's happening with the video. If you have a trainer uploading a video that they create with their phone,
that's going to be MP4, right? That's what we're something like that.
Yeah, and it's not going to work on certain devices. But the platform that you put it on, like if you were to host it on YouTube, YouTube will typically serve up an alternative version
for the phone, right?
For other devices, etc. There are paid services which will allow you to transcode it, but if you're producing your own videos, you have the ability to create all the formats you need. It depends what our primary repository is going to contain. Are we going to be containing links to videos that are elsewhere? Are we going to actually get copies of them and keep them on our servers? That kind of thing. I think those are some of the questions that you have. But mostly it's a bandwidth question and performance. How do you serve these videos so they're not choppy and buffering and they hit all your devices? I think it depends on the type of video. So, but again, that's where my focus is. Like, up until those video files are created for consumption, like I don't have a whole lot of input, and I'm not really looking at anything yet that's in front of that, like the production process, etc. So, that's neither good nor bad, but just keep that in mind that I don't have that production experience, and my focus is never going to be on that aspect of it until our systems have to support doing that production. And that's a different issue.
Yeah, and Greg, you're right though. They do have a lot of ones out there that can do it for you, and but some of them aren't that great. What I mean by not great is that they don't have enough support to help you. It takes a long time to get some done. Others are really good. So I'm finding on the editing aspect to get getting kicked over. We went to Avid because they were very respectful to us. The Adobes and all other Premiere and all the other ones we have in our system here that we had a package together. I like their export processes on the Adobe better than the export processes on the Avid, but their support for the Adobe wasn't as good as prompt that we have on Avid. So same thing goes with all the other companies that we get different formats coming in. They may have one that can work with you, but if they have a problem, they're not really good at giving back to you as quick as they should. So I guess we should make sure we get the right one that works best for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to.
Yeah. We want to make sure we get the higher quality too, because we move it up to the higher quality videos.
Right. That's true. And then they're coming, beyond 4K now, so we have to make sure we have that covered as well.
Correct. Yes.
So, but that is going to be important.
Right.
Sorry?
Have you seen any 5K videos? I've never seen any 5K. I've seen it advertised. I've never seen one yet. Tony, you seen any? I've never seen one. I've seen 4K, not 5.
4K is already like live. Like you can't even, I can't imagine 5K.
4K was wild. I look at 4K on shows. I look like I'm in a studio. Yeah. And I'm seeing people there next to me and I'm talking to them. It doesn't feel like it's a full, actually, it's a production.
It's really incredible.
Really. Yeah. It's so clear.
So that's, we definitely have to. Now on the video side, one of the things that I think is coming out in the conversations already with the high schools and universities is that we need to have and this is off track. I'm sorry, I apologize, but we need to have a package that we can offer the schools that satisfies their need to stream both live and on demand to their parents and followers for the teams. Mm-hmm. And it's not that hard a thing once we have systematized and figured out how we're going to do it. Are people going to buy a package that has the cameras already in it, like a bunch of handy cams or something? Or is it going to be, they're going to be using their phones to do those? And there probably is going to be some kind of a mix there from one company to one school to another. But I think it's becoming clear, as Leslie just got back to me, that that's one of the big pain points for the schools and universities and the AAU teams. So, and especially travel teams, because none of the parents are going to go to all the travel team events, but they still want to see their kids play. So, it's something we have to consider sometime sooner than a year down the road. So, or just have room for that capability as we sprint 6 months down the road or 9 months down the road. Just a thought. Okay, so what else? So about the development, John, any other thoughts about how we're going to do this development thing?
I mean, in what sense?
As far as our the front office and the back office of the site now actually work, but we're going to have to become a lot more interactive. And I think between you, John, and Tony, we have to make sure that we're covering the UI and the UX appropriately, and that's.
Yeah, I mean, they're like one of the first things, and if we stick with My Zeal, they already have a leg up on kind of some of the functionality. But
Yeah.
ultimately, what we need to do is kind of come up with a list, like a list of the features and the workflows that are in the app, and ultimately we'll have to start prioritizing those things. Like, what is it that we need to do? You know, there's an analysis up front, I think, because in order for My Zeal to build some of the functionality, they have to understand what's in the system, because, you know, unless, Greg, you can say, well, this is what the back end is doing when somebody does this on the site, unless you can define technically what's happening, somebody has to go investigate that in the old code to say that this is the functionality it's produced. So let's say that the upload video function, okay, it's there. So you tell the developer, we need this upload video function, but maybe there's some kind of tracking behind the scene, or there's automatic encoding to other versions or something, or things that test the length of the video to make sure that the video is under a certain number of minutes, for example. There's things like that that have to be identified, and that has to really be given to the developer so that they know what they're building. So that's really kind of the initial stepping phase. I'll have to work with the developer to do that. I'll have to work with people who are using the site as well as myself, come up with what are these features. And Greg, I think you're the most valuable resource in order to kind of identify those things.
Yeah.
So, you know, that to me is the first step, because the developer can't build anything until we tell them what exactly to build. And we just can't give them the blanket, okay, well, create this. You know, now we could come up with a short list to give them to get them started. Well, you need a login screen. You need a anonymous pages for people who aren't logged in. There's some generic, the framework to the site, the Chrome around the site, the design of it. They can start building without regard to functionality. That'll get some of the developers started while we can be working with them to define and agree on whatever feature requirements we have.
Right. I think also the way we've developed the site, it's really clear as to what you're there to accomplish when you go to it. You know, there are two nav bars. The top nav bar is saying who you are, and the bottom nav bar is basically, okay, you're either looking at the whole universe of sports or your specific sport. And then your news, blogs, rules, venues, it's very straightforward. So I don't think that is going to be a very hard part of it. I think it's a good place for the start. I think it gets more complicated if you were a coach or a manager or a organization owner, because that's all in the back office, and we'll have to lead them through those derivations as we talk.
And then from John's perspective, it's a great point. But then once we have the back end coding functionality kind of accomplished, how intuitive from a UX UI perspective you want it to be.
Exactly.
So is it intuitive where the first time I sign in, I give you information, I'm a biker, but I also play golf. The next time I sign in, is it intuitively going to position those things initially versus the whole universe, which is of interest but not as interesting as golf and whatever you play. So from a UX UI perspective, it is important to get that stuff built first, initial functionality, then prioritize what are you trying to position to folks. Is it one click in? Is it 2 clicks in? What's the drill down look like? That's where that happens, site mapping it out and understand what's prioritization.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point, but I think it's also like that's not dependent on the functionality that you build, so like Greg, if I can step back to answer that question, one of the things that's needed up front to really kind of begin the process is what you would call wireframes,
Right, of course.
kind of like skeleton figures of the pages, what's on the various pages. And the home page is going to be kind of the same for everyone because
Right.
it's anonymous at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're signed in, then maybe it'll show that you're signed in. But the home page is the home page. If you're signed in, maybe it comes up with some custom features, but we need to identify that. But as you go through the site, the different, you might say I have, there's kind of 40 screens. Well, there's 40 screens. Each one of those screens is different if you're a trainer or if you're a coach or if you're a parent or whatever. So the wireframes that kind of show you what are your basic layouts without regard to design. What are the basic layouts of the page? The elements in those wireframes are married up to technical or functional specification. These elements on the page do this. And what this is that it does might vary if you're a coach, if you're an athlete, if you're a trainer, etc. So these wireframes come up, the functionality behind it, those functional requirements get defined and married up to that front end. And then somewhere along the line, your graphic designer is going to lay a design over top of these pages, which is going to be based on personal artistic preferences.
Right. But also we're trying to force the workflow. Like we're supposed to guide people into what they are looking for. And you're right, if we know what sports they're playing, it makes it very easy because
and that'll be defined by use cases. So when you have the wireframes, I'll show you a series of wireframes. This is how you go through uploading a video and making it accessible on your portal, on your team page,
right,
or on your sport page or whatever. And there'll be a use case and there'll be branches. It'll look like a binary tree kind of, if you will.
Sure.
Where it'll branch based on what the user does at certain points in those workflows. So those will be defined, and those are all key elements to building the system. They're all essential in their own right, and they're all interrelated.
Right. I think a lot of it's also going to come down to when we first have somebody sign on, what's the splash page and what their sign up pages are. If somebody says, how do we get them, number one, to look around enough to feel they want to join? And then when they join, we're going to prompt them, pop up something that says like, okay, I'm glad you enjoyed, your tool around the place. Now you have, it'd be nice if you joined for these purposes, and then give them benefits for doing that. And then of course, the email checking, all that kind of crap. But also we make it more exciting the next time they sign on and more personalized, and say, these are your sports that you picked. You said your role in this sport as a parent, your role in this place as a coach, and then your role in this sport is as a player. And then you have those roles changing what their experience is in those different sports. So
yeah, and I want to bring Tony and Bill into the loop on this too, Greg. We've discussed this previously with some of the vendors, but there's the concept of users, and there's also the concept of roles, because a user could, number one, be anonymous. All right, you can have somebody who's not a member or someone who's a member, but they're just not signed in. Okay, so they're going to see a version of the site that's built for anonymous users. But you can't have a user type, for example, that's a parent, because a parent is kind of a role. Because an athlete could be a parent, a trainer could be a parent. So that's kind of a role that someone is fulfilling. So as users, you have athletes, you have coaches, you have trainers, and you have anonymous people. someone could potentially be an athlete and a trainer.
Exactly.
So we never really finalized those user types, etc. But there is a difference between user types that we have to define and the roles that people fulfill. And one of the complexities that we're going to have is if someone is a trainer, but they're also a coach for a sport, but they also have a child who plays that sport, and they go to this sport portal, are they viewing it as a trainer? Are they viewing it as as a parent? Are they viewing it as an athlete? Like, is there a toggle switch for them? Or do we just lump it all in there? Here's your trainer stuff, and here's your parent.
I think it's additive. I think you probably can have all those tabs on that sport portal, and just let them decide on where they want to go as opposed to trying to decide that for them.
Yeah, as soon as you say tabs, you've honed in on one specific design element.
Yeah.
One particular UI design for that page. So whether it's tabs, whether it's something else, I'm not really sure, but those are some of the things that we're going to have to define as we go through the wireframes, the functional requirements, the layouts, the user types, those kind of things.
What are the choices when we're talking about something like a nav bar and tabs? Would you like buttons, or what else?
I think it depends. I think that's a lengthy conversation on its own. Like looking at the site, looking at the different pages. What might make sense for a trainer might not make sense for a coach. Maybe for a trainer, it makes sense to combine their sports that they're an athlete for with the fact that they're a trainer.
Right.
So what about having a my page?
It's not the same.
What about having a my page?
Sorry?
Making a my page. Not that I want to give any credit because I don't like them that much anymore, but Yahoo, when it first came out, not only I can make my own separate page, and I was able to grab multiple pages, pieces of multiple pages, and make my own page. So it became a tab, but it was at my page. So like a person who's an athlete, a trainer, and a coach can have like a section that on their own page that they can click to get their special feature for their own thing.
Yeah, that's similar to
main one home, same.
That's similar to if you think of a page that gives you widgets.
Yeah, like a widget.
Where in your layout you have a bunch of boxes and you can kind of rearrange them the way you want on the page, or you can turn it off on that.
Actually, our personal page already does that.
Hey, Greg, I'm sorry. I love this conversation. I can go on forever. I love it. I've got to jump off for this other Zoom real quick.
Right.
Could I at least, John, if you can absorb that what Greg just sent you, I'd love to just set up a 30-minute intro call if it makes sense, if it resonates. I know you guys get a leg up on the other team. It may just be worthwhile to talk to these guys. They have work.net as well, so they again, just for sake of conversation, it may just be worth having an intro call. If you do, I'd love to set it up.
Yeah, let me get through that doc. I'll reply by email with some thoughts.
You got
whatever.
It. All right, guys.
All right, Tony. By the way, Tony, the video is going to be up on the staff portal later on today. So whatever you
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, man. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. All right, guys. What I want to do right now is, while we're talking about it, what I'd like to do is take you to that personal page so you can see what we're talking about. So hold on. Let me share. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
All right. So this is the staff portal. Okay, so if I go to my world and my homepage, eventually it will go to my world and my homepage. Okay, so you see here it's got tabs, drop downs for this. My sports, all the sports here because I have to approve the portals. My social media, I've loaded this personally so that I have my Twitter page, my Facebook, my YouTube, Facebook, Built in NYC, My favorite sites that I like to go to all the time. So those are there. My video. So you talk about my page. This is pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have these things, and favorite blogs are there, news sites are there, tech sites are there. And I loaded this myself, and all you do is you click the plus button and you add on whatever you want to add on. If it's in my favorites or videos or whatever, or not videos, that's a separate component, but the blogs, news, tech, all that kind of crap. And you can add on another one. If I wanted to add on another section here, I just hit this down here and write another tab, and it pops up. And then I load it as it goes along. So basically this does, like, okay, favorite blogs, I click here, and I only have one blog so far, is squash skills. But if I add another one, it's going to add there and give me a blank spot for the third one, and you just keep adding on. But I think it's what you're talking about, to have like a my page where it's totally personalizable.
Yes. If you're a coach, you can have the setup for your coaching aspect for your kids with your coaching. You can have one for your training aspect for the training aspect, and as well as your own athlete ones. Your favorites.
So that's where, and videos can do the same thing. You can have videos and my squash videos and my amazing squash. And I can drag these right now off of YouTube and Vimeo. But as we expand this, it should be able to be dragged from other places or put right up, uploaded ourselves onto UB Sports, onto our database. So this stuff is here. I think it's really cool because it harkens back to like AOL when you can do it, or my page. And I think it's really important. We don't have a place like this anymore. And it's cool that we can offer it. But also we need more, like here's my info, sports, and photo. And this is where I can start loading stuff in here, like photo and my parental agreements with my kids and notifications, how I want to be notified and when I want to be notified of updates. And my about me. Now, this should be about 3 pages deeper. But right now it asks what sports I'm into. So I have my choice of all the sports. And if I pick one, it pops up down here as soon as I save the profile. And I can add, if I wanted to add backgammon, for example, click that, save the profile. And down on my your sports, it's you see add more sports. No, you'll see it down here.
Where'd they all go?
They disappeared. Hold on. They did. It just disappeared. So let me back that and see what happened. Okay, so now we're back here. Yeah, that's supposed to go right back to here. So that's a glitch we got to solve. But that when you add something there, here it should pop up down here, and then you have your choice of player, pro, coach, parent, fan. So you have now I'm pissed off. I want to see it. See if it happens again. Let's pick another one just in case it was a glitch there. Bowling. Saving profile.
Did you put it in?
Okay, that's not doing it all now. We totally screwed up the system. Anyway, that's the way it has to work. We have to find out what just happened there. But the idea is that when you add, you have your choice of roles, and when this gives us.
It might actually be scrolling off down the bottom, and it's just not displaying because there's too many things.
Want to refresh it?
Yeah, I might have maxed out at 8 on this program, or 9 in this program. Yeah, let me try refreshing, see what happens.
It might not even be that it's maxed out. It might just be that pop-up is like that page is not long enough.
Okay, it just added there. We just did that.
Backgammon.
Backgammon's down here, so now I have my choice. I just had to refresh the page.
Didn't take the bowling though.
Okay, so that should happen now. If I try that now, bowling, and refresh. Save the profile.
There it is. Okay. Refresh it. You'll woke it up.
Yeah, I woke it up. Okay, so now bowling. So I have my choice now of pro, coach, or whatever. And I just click those, save.
Greg, can you also say like all the kids that you're coach, all the kids' telephone numbers, parents' numbers, and all that stuff, like a I would say Microsoft Excel, like a spreadsheet on this page somewhere, so you can always make contacts to your kids.
Absolutely. Also, it has this parental permissions thing here, where 13 and under, all youth accounts have to be approved by the parents, and they're if they change their profile, it has to be checked over by the parent and approved. If they join a group, that has to be approved, and they can't do anything until it gets approved by the parent. Or if they make a friendship with anybody, it has to be approved by the parent. So there's very strict guidelines if you're under 13. Between 13 and 17, you have your choice. The parents and the kids have to agree on what kind of permission they have. Do they need oversight or do they need approval? So that's, it's really important because some kid might not be trusted, or some jerk might try to predate upon a kid, and the parent wants to be able to see that happening. And then between 15 and 17, it has to be so that the parent and the kid approve. The kid can do whatever they want to do. They're fine. Parent trusts them. It's all good to go. So that stuff's already been thought out. I think it has to be clarified as we go along in this process. Notifications. This is how often I want to be notified about different things, personal notifications, group notifications. And if it gets, this would have been expanded to emails or texts if we were doing texts yet, but it wasn't, so it was just emails. But that would be, do I want to have texts or emails or both to get my notifications? So that was already thought out. But what is not here that we need to do is the About Me button needs to have different levels. It has to have this stuff here, like who I am, where I am, how what my phone number is for personal. Actually, it's more for text, so we can do that later. But also my birthday, so I have some idea about number one. Is the site going to recognize you have a birthday and say, yay, happy birthday? Is it going to put you into the masters or tell you have to join the masters as opposed to the regular adult competition? But also the next level is going to be my personal stats. What my bench press is, what my speed is, what my mile is, what my 100 is, what my 40 is, what my leg press is, that kind of stuff. So we can start storing that. That's sort of cool because you can also set up a graph. Let's say you're a 12-year-old. You can start tracking that historically so that if a kid's doing a bicep curl, he starts off at 20 pounds, is increasing to 25 pounds, that shows up and becomes a graph. When the kid then shows that to a coach, the coach can see that progression, and it becomes important to him. The kid can also verify that and get that UB verified button that we talk about. And that happens during that process. So as a coach then comes on, let's say a kid's a baseball player. The coaches know that they want to know their speed to first base. They want to know their batting percentages, their hit percentage, all kind of stuff. All those kind of stats can be stored and then validated by the coaches of the kids now, and that can be looked at by the coach in the college when they're getting recruited. So that's sport by sport, but it also should be able to be saved in the next level of this. Then the third level is how well I've done in the combines, how well I've done, what my record is in a real competitive sense. So you could have a bunch of levels of this kind of stuff that is, number one, personal specific, sport specific, and then showing the outside world's acceptance of how well you've done by winning things.
Great. How wide is the personal one, like the workout routine? Like bench press 300 pounds, and then curl 50 to 100 pounds, whatever it might be. You know, like you put a routine in there. I do 3 sets a day of this weight and this and that, and so that the coach can see the kind of routine the person's doing, or just the maxes or the workout routine. Is it narrow right now? Or are we going to expand that out?
Okay, so this is the site. The app will have a way to set up your routines.
Okay, so you can't say that someone.
Yeah, they have those already. Those are common now. So we'll either combine with somebody or copy somebody on that side of things.
Oh, good.
But I don't think that's going to be a hard thing to do. So this should be a lot deeper than it is right now. But you can see already we're going down that road, developing a very big personalization and validation process.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. Also on the parental side, I think if a parent then can put in their kids, and the kids can't join fully until they can be anonymous, but they're not going to see all the good stuff behind it until they sign up officially and get the parents involved. So we sign up one kid, they get
what verification do we have?
Sorry?
What kind of verification do we have that they're saying their birth date and are you over 18 years old? Yes. But you may not be. Is there something that we can verify, giving something? Or no?
There are a few different ways to do that. If they give us their name, there's some engines that will search that and will keep records of that kind of stuff. But I think that it's more a matter of them being honest, and they have to sign a disclaimer saying that they're being honest about things. So that's a tough question.
Maybe I could, when they join like that, sending a newsletter to their house. Thank you for joining. If they're underage and you get a mail in their house, the parents are going to see the mail.
That's true. That's true.
So it's another way.
That means we need to keep their address too, not just their zip code.
Right. But that brings legal issues with younger kids.
Well, I think guys like developer partners, whoever they are, if it's Onshul, if it's someone else, might be questions that we ask other companies as we're interviewing them over the next week or so. What they're doing for protection of the youth and how they go about validating their ages. Maybe they have ideas that we don't know.
Right. Because we don't want any liabilities on that. Even though they signed a disclaimer, they're underage. They may or may not count. And if it does count, you just have to go through the process of a legal battle. If unfortunately the kid gets hurt or something.
Or worse.
Yeah.
That's something that we have to really consider. But we have to consider that as like a tweak rather than a no-go. Because
right.
we can't go like, oh, forget about it, we're not going to do a site.
Right.
We just have to figure out how to validate and protect.
I agree.
We can only do our best too. There's only.
Hey, Greg, I'm going to have to take off. I have a 1:30 call I need to be on, and I need some time to do that to get ready for it.
Okay, John, take care of yourself.
I'll talk to you. Greg, I'll follow up after I read that thing.
Thanks, brother.
Good evening, John. Let me know.
Au revoir. So you see, Bill, there's a lot of stuff behind it, that we thought about. That's, the 2 years that we spent developing also did a lot on the groups. If I'm creating a group, if I'm doing Greg's backgammon group, I have my choice of whether it's if I'm doing a league, then I know that I have a bunch of groups under that, right? So I'll do a multi-group lead, and that sets up an opportunity for subs and Ubers. Like it might be a league for baseball, let's say. So I want the Uber to be USA Baseball, but the subs have to be the teams.
Right.
So when you're basically building an anemone when you hit this button, where there's going to be a bunch of other tentacles. And if it's just a training room or a trainers association or a group, you don't get those tentacles. And it's not going to ask your subs or Ubers. It's just going to say where it is. So there's a lot of opportunity there to do that kind of stuff. And you'll see it as you go along.
That's good.
So
yeah, it's not good over here. I'm looking at my world. Pretty good.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff behind this, Bill, that took years to develop. And really, that stuff that I showed you with my world and the personal development side, and then this stuff here with the creation of the groups, these are all patentable because nobody's doing it. Absolutely nobody's doing this. Yeah,
I like that. That's exactly what I was looking for. So that everybody who joins this, not only have the main homepage, you have your own page to go to.
Right. And it should, the AI should understand that you're always going to my universe or the UV universe. So it always goes there. But if you're always going to my world first, then that should go there. But also it gives us an opportunity when we're doing that kind of stuff, as there's an update or a headline in one of those things that I was following, that's at least sports relative, it goes, it notifies you out in the real world, either by text or by email, that something happened, and go back to your world on UV Sports. Every opportunity when there's an update in any one of these places that you signed up for is an opportunity for us to go tag you so that you can back to UV Sports until you say, enough, I can't handle it anymore. And that's right. That's why you have that in my world. You have that portion where you say, I want to see weekly updates or daily.
Right.
So you get tired of it, and it says, if this is too much for you, go to this, and it'll be URL takes you right there. So we did a lot of development behind the parents portal, the wellness portal. The groups are built beyond compare, and the sport portals are more special behind the scenes than you could think, because we have all this stuff. Okay, so I'm the badminton admin, and all this stuff is behind the scenes. All the admin changes that I can do are relative to these tabs that are already out here. So you'll see tab display and management. All these are already here. We have news, blogs, rules, skills and drills, videos, governing bodies, venues. All these things are right here. See how it says Ubers and subs?
Yeah.
So those are set up. The subs will be under, and the Ubers, being that this is the backgammon, the backgammon site, Uber would be international backgammon. Or I'm sorry, international, where are we? We're on badminton. So it's the International Badminton Association. So that would be there, the IBF.
Okay. And the subs would be the teams that play that particular sport.
Right, and the teams, right, the tubs, exactly. The subs would be the teams, the leagues, everyone else that goes underneath it. And if it's a league, that league would be down there, and then under them would be the subs for the different teams. So that's how you get that nesting doll effect. Right.
That'll work nice. I like that. And it customizes the website so that you're getting more than you want. And anybody who wants to join will feel a lot more comfortable saying, I can build my own page and I have everything else. This is great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then you decide how you want the members to be shown. Are they VIP or regular members? And then you have the tabs. How many tabs? You can also add tabs in a lot of these things. Not here. You hear other resources will do that. But then you have the video displays. The videos we have are incredible in this. So
how do you download videos in this thing?
They're basically either YouTube or Vimeo, and you go new playlist, and I'm going to do 2020 Worlds. And then I'll take the URL, the embed code from YouTube.
Oh, I see. And you copy that and drop it in there.
Yeah. And it's in the embed code that you copy, not like the link or anything. It's the embed code.
Right. You right click the link of it, right? The page, the video.
Yeah. So if I'm going to go back out to YouTube in general. Where are you hiding? There you are.
It's working a little slow on you right now.
Damn. You're not kidding. Okay, so I have Carl and Greg, and I'm going to copy into that playlist, just to say. Down here it says share.
Right, it opens up a page with the URL on it, doesn't it?
It has Facebook, Twitter. So
I got it.
Those. The regular link here is something that I would share with my friends. I would just copy that, and I would copy that. It's this link copy to play clipboard down there, and I can copy that to anybody on just an email or a text, and they'll be able to punch up this video. But if I hit the embed code, pops this up. And you click this once, and it lights up the whole thing.
Oh, I see.
And then I copy it. Right. And then I copy it, go back to the site, and that's basically how I do it. Where's my thingy?
You got a lot of pages open there.
I do. So I go back here. I put
over here.
Embed code here. I go Carl and Greg. Hit the create playlist, and that creates this new playlist for the 2020 Worlds. So that's basically how you do it. It's really straightforward.
Yeah.
And that's where you need those little tabs or little pop-ups to say, copy the embed code, not the link. So
yeah.
there are ways that we're going to tweak this to make it better.
And I even make private right now. Oops. Yeah, make private on there. Like, when you make private, you got to make sure they understand what you're making it private means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
what it means.
Right. That just means that other people can't see it, that it's only for the people in that group.
Right.
So that's important. And then if I hit make private on my own page, on my I have the same capability on my regular page. If I am doing, I got my choice of videos, hit that there, and that allows me to set up my own playlists and my own videos. And when I do that, it's going to ask make private. That means that only I can see it and not people looking at my page.
I see.
Because people can look at your page and see what you're looking at and what you've done and what sports you like. That's part of it. Yeah. Because if I'm, if you're me, I want to see what you're doing. And especially if you're playing the same sport, I can go and see the different people who are playing the sport and go into their personal pages and see how good they are.
Oh, okay.
And see where they live and all that kind of stuff. So if I want to, check them out and say, hey, I'm in your neighborhood, I want to play squash with you.
Right.
They'll follow that. And I also can search that way when I go to, looking for find other members. I can search by zip code. So that gives me.
So when you find people in your area.
Right, exactly. So I can search everybody in my area or 10 miles away or 25-mile circle, or I can say people who are over 25 years old who play my sports in my area. So a lot of capabilities that we don't have showing here, but that are the plan.
Right.
And they're pretty obviously are the plan. But it's going to, as John said, it's going to be me and him sitting down with the developers and going through what each one of these pages looks like at the end.
Right.
So
and we got to discuss also, I guess, with Tony too, is any internal video we put together, what format we're using, what editing system we're using, so you know what platform we're using, so that when you and John are talking to the IT people developing it, whatever platform we're having, they understand, they can talk to each other.
Right.
So we can take it right, bring it down. Like you said, anybody who wants to do their phone and stuff outside and bring it in for a coach to look at or whatever to look at, they have apps and programs we can download to do that for us.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to buy another computer. I'm going to get one of those iPads, and it's basically the same screen I can punch up, but I can save it and draw on it. So we can sit down and go like, okay, we want to do this here, this here, this here, and we can be a lot more specific about what we want and where it goes.
My phone can do some of that. I'll go in there and play around a little bit.
Yeah, but it's only that big.
I have the drawer on it and all that stuff on mine.
Yeah, I can do it on mine too, but if we're going to do it properly, it's going to be on a screen this big.
Yeah.
So I'm going to suck it up and get one this weekend. I'll suffer through it, I guess. It's getting to be a business tool, so I have to do it.
Right.
You
need it more and more, so you might as well have it.
Yeah. I know. I'll get it down in New Jersey when I'm there on Saturday.
Are you coming out to play squash again?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a fun day, man. Well, let's take this offline. This is still being recorded.
Ah. Okay, what's up?
So we're good here. I think we've got everything taken care of. Obviously, it's only 2 of us out of the 5 left. So let's continue this. I'm going to put the video of this up on the staff portal and invite everybody to go watch it. I think there's a lot to learn here.
But where's the staff portal now?
It's on UB Sports. It's under, I'll show you. I have it right here. Groups.
Groups?
Your search groups.
I'm right here. We do that now. Search groups. Oh, mine's going slow too. There we go. Okay.
Okay. And so all you have to you enter group name. You go UB Sports staff, and that should be enough. There you go. So you click this, takes you right there.
I'll click on that. Okay, what do I have? Oh, there it is. Okay. That's good.
So this is what you have to, then there's a spot on the right side that you see that I don't see. It says join group. You see it on the right side in the gray?
VIPs.
Oh, you're already a member. That's why you're not seeing it.
That's why. Yeah. I'm on there already.
Yeah. So, but we're still missing some people. I'm trying to figure out who are we missing. Okay, so
we can't find that back.
Me, John's a member, Carl, Bill, Greg. Okay, Kenna Kelly's there, but we have to get the other 2 women to join. We need Devin here, and we need Dane.
Michael's not there either.
Yeah, so we have to get those guys on. So let's do that. Okay, Bill, could you do that?
Hold the mic in who?
Email those guys. Everybody else is on the email that isn't here.
Oh, I think I had that. It's gonna
be David, Jim, Ann, Dania, Deb. I think that might be it. I think everybody else is here.
And Mike, right? And Deb.
And Mike, yeah.
Mike.
And is Tony here? Tony.
Tony's not on it?
He's here. Okay, we're good.
He's there, right? Okay.
So if you could email them or text them and just say join the UB Sports, and I just told you how to get there.
Right.
You just search groups and then you go join.
Search groups, right? Type in as a group name.
Here.
UB Sports staff.
Yep.
And just search.
I'll pop right up.
Click the button. Click the highlight on the left.
And
it comes up.
Cool, man.
Excellent. I'll do that right now.
All right. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Okay, and we'll talk more about the financials.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
All right, I'll let you know.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Where am I?
How do you say bye over here? Stop share. And